Hello friends, today's chapter of the day is Zechariah chapter 4. And Zechariah is another great book of prophecy, and Zechariah somewhat blessed because he gets to be the deliverer of more good news than some of these other prophets that we've been looking at. So where we are historically is Zechariah is kind of around the Ezra-Nehemiah time, when they're starting to rebuild the temple to prepare for the return of the exiles. The prophet Jeremiah had told him, you're going to be exiled for 70 years. Zechariah is kind of at the end of those 70 years. They're getting ready to go back, and in the meantime, they're working on rebuilding the city, and particularly the temple. And there's two main figures you got to know about. Figure number one is Zerubbabel, who is kind of the mayor of Jerusalem, or the civic leader of Jerusalem. And he's not only in charge of the city, but he's particularly in charge of rebuilding this temple. And then the second one is Joshua, not the Joshua from the book of Joshua, but Joshua the high priest at the time of Zerubbabel. So we've got the political and the religious leader of Jerusalem at the time, and they're both going to come into play. And what happens in chapter 4? Well, Zechariah gets a vision. He gets a vision, and an angel comes and wakes him up and speaks to him and shows him this vision. And what is the vision? It's a lampstand with a bowl on top of it and 7 lamps and 7 lips. So basically 2 olive trees feeding oil into this lampstand so that the lampstand can continually burn. So it's kind of like a self-filling lampstand. You don't have to press the oil out of the olives. The trees just sort of leak the oil into this tray, and the lamps pick it up out of the tray. That's what he sees. And what does it all mean? Well, verse 5, because Zechariah doesn't know what it means. The angel who talked tells him, do you not know what these are? Zechariah, no. He says no. Verse 6, this is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. What's God saying? He's saying you're not going to get this project done because one man works really hard, or because the whole nation works really hard. You're going to get this project done by the power of my spirit, and you need to trust in it. Don't get prideful in yourself. Don't get prideful in your nation. Look to me as your source. In verse 7, who are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel, you shall become a plain. In other words, this task looks too much to overcome by one man, because it is. And that's why that man gets the Spirit. So, verse 9, God promises Zerubbabel through this prophecy of Zechariah that he's the one who's going to get to finish this temple. And in verse 10, God says something really encouraging to all of this. For whoever has despised the day of small things shall rejoice. In other words, there have been a lot of days in rebuilding this temple when it seemed like not much got done. There wasn't a satisfying wall that went up or a great accomplishment, but it was just more work. And he's saying, if you've been frustrated in those days, you're going to rejoice when you see this whole thing come together. And it's going to come together by the power of the Spirit of God. And what does he say? The 7 lamps are the eyes of the Lord. They represent God and his presence with his people. And then finally at the end, Zechariah says, well, what about these 2 olive trees? What do they represent? Why 2? What is that? Where's the 2 coming from? And the angel says, then he said, these are the 2 anointed ones who stand by the Lord of the whole earth. And what does that mean? God chose 2 people at that time through which to pour out his Spirit, through which to give his wisdom so they could lead God's people. And those people were Zerubbabel and Joshua, the high priest. So what he's saying is trust your leaders, but don't put your dependence on your leaders. Put your dependence on me. And to the leaders, be encouraged, but don't be so encouraged that you get prideful. Be so encouraged that you can point everyone else to me so that you can reap great success through the power of God's Spirit. How does this apply to us? We've all got that Spirit inside of us. So we have all of this power so that when we're looking at something hard, we can think about verse 7 and say, who are you, O great mountain? Before me, by the power of God's Spirit, you shall become a plain. We've all got that Spirit if we're believers. So rejoice in that. Rejoice in the gifting that God has given all of us. Not specific sort of particular gifting, but the gifting of His Spirit, which is more power than we'll ever be able to harness and appreciate. Hope this has been a blessing to you. God bless, and I look forward to reading more with you.